Let's move on to the writing section. So paper 2, question 5. I picked out the article question in particular because for year 11, this will definitely be the format that you'll be writing in your exam. They've told us that it will be an article. For year 10, you will also be writing an article in your mock. However, just a heads up, the topic is on the theme of celebrities and sport. Okay, so you might want to start doing a little bit of reading if you're completely sportingly challenged like me. So I'm going to be looking at the qualities that make up an article, the conventions, the style, the register, so that you can make your writing sound more like an article. Okay, so typically this is what an article will look like, but in the exam, you are not going to be setting out in columns, you are not going to be setting out with a picture. So what you're looking to do then is not trying to replicate how articles look, but how they sound. So I'm taking articles to mean A, newspaper articles, B, magazine articles, and C, online articles. You will need to include a headline, potentially a subheading, but that's about all it needs. Okay, so on this article, we have a lovely big photograph and a column. Nothing for you to emulate there. Then we have the title, By the Law of the Jungle. You want to do something like that. You want to keep it very, very simple. Don't overthink it. So let's have a look at what an article sounds like rather than looks like. I'm mainly interested in this bit after you've got your headline. Okay, so the more you look at news, magazine and web articles, the more you will notice there is a summary strap line, by a person, by the author. So we've got one here, a safari and Masai Mara National Reserve is a mosaic of surreal landscapes and wildlife chases that keep you at the edge of your seat. This is very much the bit where I say when we're writing in class is where you are stating your viewpoint. So some of these are long, some of these are short, sometimes they're in the form of a question, sometimes they're in the form of a statement. They're usually at least a sentence, and more literary articles will have 2 or 3 sentences. So like this one here, one that's practically the opening of the text about Bangladesh and a very simple summary there. So a short distance beyond the last fish seller and the final ramshackle tea stall, the path curves downwards to where bales of hay and stacks of firewood line the riverfront. Beyond this are the boats and the river, an expanse of green-brown waters known here in Surganji as Bangladesh as the Jamuna. Okay, so we've got quite a detailed few sentences there. So this is obviously a travel text, but you're basically summarizing what the text is about. So again, this is what I call your viewpoint. So in your strapline, in your subheading, in your opening kind of paragraph, you are going to summarize the whole of your article in 1 or 2 sentences, stating your viewpoint. This acts as a little teaser for what's to come in the article. Okay, then this one here is Hidden Britain. So there's the headline, and we've got a longer kind of introduction there. Another example here, Super Wolf, the life of an alpha male, wolves that led Yellowstone's famous Druid Park, told us much about Carl's extract beyond. So you can do a headline, you can state kind of your viewpoint, you can do if you want, like Carl Safina, it's completely up to you. Okay, so Year 11, you have definitely seen this task before from June 2017. Okay, so I'm just going to leave the headline for a little bit and I'm going to look at my plan here. So this is the parents today are overprotective. First thing I want to do is have 3 or 4 big ideas that tie into that article. It's a broadsheet newspaper. Going to be very formal, but I am basically either going to say I agree parents are overprotective, I want my 4 main arguments that promote that, or I'm going to say they're not protective enough and I want my 3, 4 main arguments that support that. So AQA are actually vaguely helpful when it comes to guidance about the stylistic features that may constitute a kind of sort of articleness, saying that at a minimum, an article may have a headline and some paragraphs, and better articles may include. So this is your checklist: a clear, apt, original title, so a headline, a strapline, which we've just talked about. So a summary, you can use subheadings if you so choose to summarize your main ideas, an introductory overview paragraph, and fluent sequenced paragraphs. So these are the sorts of things that you want to include in your article. So what I've done here is, this is my opening, okay? So my opening sentence here, I'm going to be writing up 3 kind of arguments. So the first is going to sum up my viewpoint, okay? So, are our children coddled and cosseted, pampered and at risk of being smothered? Without a sense of adventure or ability to take risks, the next generation are in danger of growing up filled with unresolved anxiety, or worse, constantly seeking thrills that put their lives in jeopardy. Emily believes that parents' attempts to protect their children are creating unnecessary problems. So this is my kind of strapline and my introductory paragraph. It asks a number of questions that engage the reader. It's very kind of controversial. I've introduced kind of my author as Emily, so I've used the third person, and it talks about the type of thing that I'm going to explore in this article. For my ending, okay, so after I've introduced my 2 or 3 main ideas, I'm always going to make sure that my ending links back to my opening. So in my final paragraph, I'm going to have a summary of what I said that links back to my introductory paragraph and strapline. I'm going to mention some of those words directly, some as synonyms, and I want my main idea to be there. So very much my main idea was that children are coddled and cosseted, so I want to link back to that. I'm going to include a call to action using imperatives, but gentle ones. I want to implore people to get on board with me. And I'm going to use my editorial byline and biography that gives my expertise to comment on this situation, which, you know, I may very well make up. So here is what I've started with. Are our children coddled and cosseted, pampered and risk of being smothered? So there is my introduction. And this is the start of me linking back to my opening. It's time we give our children a little space, develop their sense of adventure and teach them to take calculated risks. Give your child a little leeway and you may find a happy solution to many of those childhood doubts and anxieties. So in my ending, can you see there that I've linked back? Okay, I've mentioned anxiety directly. I've linked back to my opening, and that's what you should be aiming at doing. So year 11, you have definitely seen this before. This is something we did in February. You've got the question there. And when we did this, I told you to highlight any key information from the article that may form your response. Remember, you will have 2 articles in the exam that will link to the question. There may be things there that are useful. So particularly for year 10, you may find, because it's a sport related question, that you want to use your article to help you. Okay. Okay, so what you need to do is decide on whether you agree or disagree, and you need 3 central arguments to support your perspective. So if I'm saying that today parents are overprotective, I might say things like, I might go 1, things like safety measures. I might say here parents are overprotective because they give their children mobile phones too long, apps to track them. They won't let them walk to school on their own because they're so terrified of safety. I might talk about how in terms of play, it's incredibly safe now, where health and safety has gone mad. Parents are reluctant to use things like parks or climbing trees, and we rely on things like trampoline centres and indoor play because we consider that safer. And the third one I may say is that in education, parents don't allow children to take calculated risks anymore. They're constantly micromanaging teachers, micromanaging education. Those would structure my 3 paragraphs. And I might have as subheadings personal safety, play and education as my 3 subheadings. Okay, the reason I want counter arguments is so that I can knock them down if I choose. Okay, I can anticipate the other side's response and knock down the argument if I wish. So remember, these are the features that you might want to include: your clear, apt original title or headline, a strap line that introduces your overview, subheadings, and sequenced paragraphs introducing your 3 main points. So here, this is my introduction that I modelled in class that I've typed up for you. So today's modern parents are creating unnecessary problems with their increasingly over-the-top attempts to protect their children from the world. Think about it. How many times have you seen small children coddled and cosseted by their parents? Children in 2022 are not being pampered for being prepared for their futures. They are pampered, at risk of being smothered by their overprotective parents, and completely without a sense of adventure or ability to take risks. A recent report states that the next generation are at risk of growing up with unresolved anxiety, or worse, constantly seeking thrills that put their lives in jeopardy. If we continue on this path to societal destruction, we will create a generation of adults who simply cannot function in the real world. And what you'll notice is that is beautifully written, and that is because I've used my sentence starters that we've talked about before. So I've clearly stated my viewpoint, which is 1. I've asked a rhetorical question that starts with think about it, how many times? I've then explained the answer to the rhetorical question using a list. I've used a colon to introduce that list, and I've used commas to separate the items in those lists. I've then provided evidentiary support through a recent report. Remember, you can make that up. And then I've created displeasing reality implied by the report. Okay, so I've used a dash there to show that displeasing reality. I've skipped here to my ending. So I'm using my imperative verbs that we talked about before. Action must be taken. It's time we gave our children a little space, develop their sense of adventure, and teach them how to take calculated risks. Once again, I would ask you, how many times have you seen small children coddled and cosseted by their parents? Surely you know it's time to acknowledge the truth and give children some leeway. Parents may soon find the happy solution to many of those childhood doubts and anxieties. So I've used my opening paragraph to structure my conclusion, which is going to get me more marks. I've linked back to the opening. I've begun my conclusion with action must be taken. I've then written, once again, I ask, would you, repeating my rhetorical question from number 2. And then I've written, surely you know it's time to acknowledge. And I've established once more exactly what I think should be done. So those are sentence starters we can use for our conclusion. This is what the whole thing looks like. So you should be quite familiar with this. Year 10, you've seen it a few times. Year 11, you've seen it quite regularly. What I would like you to do for your revision is have a go at that question using the sentence starters. Year 11, if you wish, pick yourself a different topic. It doesn't have to be this one because I know you've done it before. So you might want to look at writing a statement to do with the environment, recycling, veganism, education, whatever you so choose, but have a go at writing that for your revision.